Thanks, everyone. Welcome. I'm Jordan Rose. I'm president and founder of Rose Law Group in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I've been looking forward to this Zoom call all week, really. We're going to experience an entrepreneur masterclass today. No joke. We're just incredibly fortunate to have the highly successful entrepreneur, business pioneer, teacher, speaker, author, philanthropist, Mr. Peter H. Thomas. So hello, Peter. Wave to everyone.
Hi,
Peter, it's great to see you and learn from you. And thanks for investing your time today with us. I'll say to everybody, we've had a tremendous response to this, and it's a big deal, as it's Peter's new online leadership program that he developed with the Professional Development Academy, General Colin Powell, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, and over 150 other thought leaders, executives, entrepreneurs, and professors. And we might get to talk a little bit about that today, but already we just have so much to get to. So Peter, we've got dozens of questions that were already sent in. So thank you all, the listeners, for sending those in. And before I get to those questions, let's just tell us your unique perspective for right now on what we're all facing.
Sure.
Thanks, Peter.
Well, hi, everybody. Thanks, Jordan. And hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm very excited to chat with you all this morning. I've got friends whose names I saw registered who are from such different parts of my life. And each one of you have been so instrumental in helping me get so much enjoyment and fun, from my business, and who've helped me during my personal life and my business life. Many of you, we've worked business together. So it's so good to be with you all today. We've got lots of questions to cover, but I thought during these crazy times that we're in, I'll start by sharing some philosophical thoughts which help me to keep my brain positive and thinking positive. When I got into some major difficulties back in the 80s, once the worst kind of like financial mess, I decided to run the New York Marathon. And when I started training, I thought that I was in great shape. But I found that I could only run about 5 miles. And as you know, the marathon is 26.2. So I had an awful lot of training to do. And I had to learn to eat better, lose a few pounds, sleep better. As a byproduct, I found that after getting in a marathon condition, I was in much better shape to fight my business wars. I had a lot of training to do, as I had a lot of wars to fight. I didn't realize it, but I found that I was also training for the marathon of life. I was getting marathon ready, and I realized that life is full of surprises and challenges. And if I want to get through them, then I'd better be marathon ready to get through them successfully. And I learned that the easiest part to learn was to pay attention to my sleep, my exercise, and the food that I allowed into my body. And that was training for the marathon, which I found we're in a marathon right now. And if you're trained for it and you feel strong, you get through it much better. But that only looks after your body. The next thing you must get in condition with is your mind. If you have no plans or no goals, then you become part of somebody else's plan or the state that you find yourself in when a calamity arrives. And that could be in the form of a recession, a pandemic, a hurricane, a fire, a flood, a war, earthquakes, tornadoes, heat waves, tsunamis. And I've only got half of them here. Terrorist attacks. These are all things that knock us right off our pedestal when we're cruising along thinking that things are going to be just fine. So we have to be prepared, because everything I said there is life. That's the things that happen to us in life. And we can't plan for them. They just happen. So my question to you now is, are you ready for your marathon of life? Are you marathon ready? Because that's the challenge I throw out to you. Because if you are, if your body and your health and your mind are in good shape, nothing knocks you down. You don't stress as much, you just are much better. So I learned very soon when I got into business that I had to set goals if I wanted to succeed. And my goals couldn't be vague. I want to make a lot of money, or I want to be successful, or I want a new car. I needed to state as close as I could to be exactly what I wanted to get and what I wanted to do and how I was going to get there. So I learned that the best way to achieve success, and all the word success mean, is the attainment of a predetermined goal. So it's not anything about becoming the king of the world or anything else. It's just set a goal, and when you attain it, you're successful. If you set out to be a good mom, and you are a good mom, man, you're successful. But I found to be successful, I had to set daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly goals. I just had to do that. And I learned that if I want to control my day, though the best thing each day, because every day, marathon condition again, I choose a word to describe my intention for that day. Like, for example, my word today is gratitude. So I'm just so grateful. I'm grateful for being here. I'm grateful for this opportunity to talk to you all. I'm grateful for my life. I'm grateful for my wife, just a grateful guy. And that word carries me through for today. I remember the other day I had to have the word patience because I had a lot of stuff to go through. So the word patience, but the word happiness, the word love, relationships, forgiveness, execution, clarity. There's many words you can use. Say, what do you want to be today? And then you set that day, and that's your intention for the day. So nothing will knock you off your stool. Now I'm going to share 3 stories about 3 outstanding individuals that will give you some idea how you set your mind how does mind set your mind for success. The first story I'm going to tell you is, I think you've all heard of the NFL player Tom Brady. And I'm going to tell this story to you so that you don't simply believe that everyone you meet is much smarter than you. And when they tell you you can't do something, that you just automatically accept that you can. As you all do know, historically, Tom Brady became the winningest National Football League quarterback of all time. But I don't know if you all know this. He was the 199th compulsory draft pick in the 6th round of the 2000 drafts. As you know, he was picked by the New England Patriots, where he remained there for 18 years. But every single owner, head coach, the assistant coaches in the selection of the draft choices, not one single person in the NFL picked Tom Brady. And not once, but 6 times. So you have all these experts in the field of their choice selecting out of 200 people. Brady came in 199th. So that will tell you what other people's opinions are worth. Because you'd think that somebody would have saw him. So I looked it up when I did my research. I wonder, well, who were the other 6 guys? So there were 6 other quarterbacks chosen ahead of Tom. You know what? You wouldn't know one of their names today. You would not. They did nothing. So yet they chose them over Tom. So have confidence in yourself and your own ability. There's nobody out there that much smarter than you are. You got just as good a chance. So don't just be gullible and take somebody's word. Especially, when you younger ones are listening out there. People are so quick to tell young people, oh, you can't do it. You haven't experienced. You're not smart enough. Whatever. Don't believe that. Believe in yourself. And if people tell you can't do something because you're too small, too big, don't have the right education, or you live in the wrong part of the world, remember this story. Remember that story. The next story about another man, very interesting. His name is James Stockdale. Now, he was a former naval officer, and he actually was a vice president candidate many years ago in the 60s, 70s. And he was held as a Vietnamese prisoner for 7 years. He was repeatedly tortured, suffered constantly, and he had little reason, to believe that he would actually get out alive. But ultimately what saved him was his ability to process the reality of his situation. And he balanced that with this optimism and his optimistic belief that he would survive and return home. But the ones who didn't make it were the ones who they had to have exactness about when the tough times they were in would be over. When is it going to be over? It'll be over by Christmas. But he didn't believe in Christmas, that he'd be home. He knew he'd get out of there, but he didn't set a date on it. And he said that almost like everybody else died that he was with. He was the one who lived through that period of time. And 7 years, 7 Christmases, because he didn't put a date on when it was over. Right now, we're in this horrible situation. And the whole world, next week we'll open this, next day, next this. So we're tensed up for the wrong reasons. It'll be over when it's over. And if you can live your life like that, I'm going to talk a bit more about later on. So don't keep living your life, waiting for it to be over. We're in it, and we're in it to win it, and we're in it today. And I'll tell you again a bit more later on about living in day-tight compartments. And the last fellow I'm going to tell you about, his name is Dan Crenshaw. Now, Dan was a Navy SEAL who got blown up in Afghanistan, completely lost one of his eyes. He was semi-blinded in the other eye. And he was just bitter, mean, and angry about what happened to him. And he just couldn't understand why him. He just couldn't get it. And one day, he had a transformation in the hospital. And he realized that his buddy had stepped on the mine just right in front of him. Of course, his buddy was dead. It blew him up and he was dead. And he thought to himself, oh my God, I'm alive. Thank you. And he started getting grateful he was alive. And, now he doesn't wake up like he's blind every morning. He wakes up appreciating the gift of some sight, any sight at all. So no matter what you got going on with yourself, choose not to become a victim of your circumstance. Be the agent of change. Accept what the situation is, what you've got, and you be the agent of your own change. Actually, Dan healed himself. He came back from Afghanistan, and in a long shot victory, he got elected to the Congress in 2018. And he represents his city of Houston. So I think we'll hear from him again, Dan Crenshaw. One other thing troubles that we do when we're in times like this, they interviewed Charlie Munger. Charlie's 96, and he's Warren Buffett's partner. You hear more about Warren Buffett. Charlie is his 96-year-old partner, 50-50, owns everything that Warren owns. And they asked him a question, said, Charlie, tell me, what happens in times like we're in right now? What opportunities come up? Why do situations arise like this? Why do we get like we are? And his word was, people become frozen. We freeze. And I talk about the old deer in the headlights, that kind of thing. But I thought it was interesting. Wall Street Journal headline, big article about it. And that was his only advice all the way through the article. People become frozen and they can't act. Are you becoming frozen? Watch that for yourself if you become frozen. Okay? I can't help but tell you a quick story about a man called Red Scott in closing this part of the session. I'm in an organization called YPO. And in it, you meet a lot of people that are so bright and so smart and so good. And so I was so excited to get into YPO and to learn. And there was a workshop or a convention being held in Hawaii. And I registered to go. It was my first convention. And there was a guy there called Red Scott was teaching. And in his bio, it said that he had 12 companies that all qualified to be YPO companies. Well, I had one company that barely qualified. And he had 12 of them that were huge companies, and so I'm going to get a chance to learn. I thought all I want is to get rich and be like him, to make a bunch of money and be successful. So I go into this room, and it was a room big enough to hold about 50 people, and there was only 15 people in it. This guy came in there, he headed up the pass, he looked around, he said, let's go to the beach. That was different. Had my little notepad with me. So we go to the beach. He said, I want you, this beautiful day in Hawaii, I want you to write down your values. And I thought, my values, okay. Well, seems weird to talk to learn how to be successful. Why am I writing my values down? But okay. So I wrote down, what I thought was my values: health, happiness, making money, all the things that I thought was important to me. And now he said, I want you to write down on another list everything you've done in the last couple of weeks towards your values, wife, kids, all that. And I looked at it and I said, oh my God, it was like a wake-up call. Everything I did was towards my career. It was towards making money. There was nothing else that I was doing outside of that. And it was a huge wake-up call because I realized that my values are health, freedom, happiness, and integrity. So when anything I do in my life or that come into life, I have those values that I make sure that whatever I do aligns with those values. So I say that to you at the beginning of my talk. If you saw, you've got to have these attitudes of those three gentlemen I talked about. Get your mind set, get your mind in shape with a good word for the day, and you've got your values figured out. So now you're ready. Now I'm ready for my day. So I think I'm going to stop at that point right now, Jordan, and go back to you.
Keep it going, Peter. It's one of the comments here on the chat, and feel free to send things on the chat. If you just had a little enthusiasm, you'd be interesting, Peter. So thank you for the enthusiasm. And I know when we first talked, I remember you said word of the day, and I said, oh my gosh, I've got a word of the day too. And my word today was joy. So thanks for bringing that. Okay, the first question that was sent in is from Karen Decor. You want to wave if you're out there. She's the CEO and owner of Decor Brands, which is a lifestyle company focusing on hotels, restaurants, dog daycares, and real estate. And as a leader, she applies her legal training to operate the Decor family office's strategic investments in health, advertising, technology, and real estate. Peter, her question is, how do you motivate yourself to succeed when times are tough like today? And where do you find your inspiration to succeed when so many people are out of work or at risk or fear of losing their business?
Thanks, Karen. It's a great question. You know, like usual, I have to tell you a little story. I'm a Canadian, and up in Canada, we have a province called Saskatchewan. It's huge and it's flat, all the way across it's flat, and there's wheat fields as far as the eye can see. And so this farmer was working the land with his son, and he took his land up to the farm, and he started cutting the grain. And where he cut it, the boy had to do the stooking. They call it stooking, where he pitchforked to put the grain up, standing up together so the rain wouldn't get down to it, and they could pick it up later on. So the boy was stooking, the dad was cutting the grain, and away they went. And the dad kept going around the field, a great big huge field, and the boy just working away. And all of a sudden the dad comes back, and the boy's standing there. It was about past coffee break, about sort of 10:30, 11 o'clock, and the boy was crying. And his dad walked off the tractor and said, "Son, you know, why are you crying?" And he looked up and he said, "Well, I'll never get done, Dad. Look ahead of me. Look at what I got to do. I'll never get finished." And he said, "Son, you're looking the wrong way." He said, "Look over your shoulder and see how far you've come." So in times, Karen, like right now, when I need to get bolstered up because everything is turning into crap around you and stuff, just look how much you've done. Look at the successes you've had and enjoy those successes, because they'll give you the power and the strength to see the future. So back to you, Jordan. We lost
Sorry,
Jordan.
sorry. Okay, yeah, that's like one of those bad Zoom call skits where you're muted and you're talking. Okay, follow-up question. Can you share an experience when you took a business challenge and made it into an opportunity?
Sure. You know, once I swallowed a little bit more than I could have handled, and I bought a huge land tract in San Antonio, Texas. And it was enormous. It was 1,276 acres. It was the largest deal at that point I had done in my life. And I thought there was a housing development on that land that I thought, well, you know what? I know so much about this. Why don't I just kind of do it myself? So I bought in a builder that I thought I knew pretty well, and I put him to work on it. Well, you know, lined up a bank line of credit, and away he started building houses. Well, I didn't realize, I just got a call one day that he wasn't on the site. He was gone. And what do you mean he's gone? Houses were half built, roofs were off them. It was like a disaster. And what are we going to do? Like, that was the worst that could happen. Well, what happened is I sort of strategized, thought, well, I need to solve this, like not in a month or 2 months and have a bunch of meetings. I need to solve it today. So I felt the best strategy is if we could find somebody to sell it to. But then who do you sell a half-built project with the roofs off? Who do you sell that to? Well, we got a list of the best home builders in San Antonio, and we started with the #1 best builder there. We're prepared to go down through the whole list if I had to. And we wound up becoming a partner with the #1 builder in San Antonio, and he was the most respected builder in the area. And I called him, I told him what happened to him. I flew down that night from Vancouver, met with him, and it took less than 7 days. His team was on the site and working. So that was one of my worst situations that made best. But a strategy that I use is I always have an exit strategy when I start something. I always try to figure, well, you can get into something any day of the week, but how do you get out of it? So an exit strategy is a good thing to have. And so that's a bit of a tip. And then the other thing, I guess, to stop those kind of things from happening is I wouldn't do a project without a buy-sell agreement in place, Karen. You know, getting into business is like getting married, and a prenup is a good thing. Back to you, Jordan.
Thanks, Peter. Good advice on all fronts. Just curious, but what's one common mistake you see amongst entrepreneurs that compromises sort of their ability to make things happen?
You know, when that question came, the answer came so quickly to me that I thought, well, maybe I better think about this some more. But I really stay with this answer. I think the mistake that every entrepreneur makes once they get started is a reluctance to reach out for help. And I'll tell a little story, but when I acquired the Canadian rights of Century 21 for Canada, I moved to Vancouver to open up the territory, and I hired a full staff I had the deal signed, sealed, and delivered. And I hired a full staff, including my CEO, and I had sort of conditionally sold some franchises. And then I was shut down by the Securities Commission after about 6 months of operation. And I was charged with selling securities with no license. Well, like I was like, what am I doing? What happened there? Like it's unbelievable. And in those days, franchising was a new thing. Now, of course, franchising is the biggest thing. It is new. And they hadn't heard of the franchising. There was no franchise laws in Alberta. And in British Columbia, there was security laws. So that franchise didn't fit. I hadn't registered with them or anything else. So they felt it didn't fit. And I said, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do on this thing? And this is a kind of a weird thing that happened to me. I was at my wit's end. I couldn't figure it out. And I was a member of Young Presidents Organization, YPO. And there was a member, his name was Jim Patterson. I'll never forget, his name was Jimmy Patterson. And I hadn't met him at that time, but he was very famous. He was probably the biggest businessman, and he still is, in British Columbia at that time. And I thought, geez, if I knew him, I bet he could help me. I wonder if he could help me. And I'm walking by a payphone in the airport. And I looked at the payphone, and I saw Jimmy's face on the payphone. And I said, you know what? I'm going to call him. Looked up his phone number in the phone book, and I cold called. I got his assistant on the phone. And I told her my little dilemma in about 5 minutes. And she said, just a minute. His voice comes on the phone in like 8 seconds. Yeah. Jimmy Patterson here. Like, whoa, And so I quickly told him my tale of woe. And he said, where are you? I said, I'm at the airport. And he said, He said, I'll call you back in 10 minutes. What's your number? So I read the number off the payphone because it didn't have mobile phones in those days. He said, I'll call you back. So I stood by the payphone guarding it because I didn't want anyone else to use it because I was waiting for the call to come back. He calls me back and he said, call Sir Michael Butler. And he gave me the phone number. And I like, okay. I called this guy, Sir Michael Butler. It turns out to be one of the top lawyers, legal brains in the province at that time. And literally within 2 days, I was back in business. So that explains the reluctance to reach out and help. I want to just tell you straight, like I didn't know where to go to my wit's end. So I thought, well, just instinctively went for the top. So that's what you need to do, entrepreneurs. Reach out.
Reach out and go to the top. I like it. Thank you. Okay, we've got, oh wow, the consulate to Canada is on, Glenn Williamson, who is a longtime friend of yours and a hero of mine. Glenn, why don't you wave with all your Canadian paraphernalia in the back? Thanks for being here. He's got a great question. And I understand you both have been through lots of ups and downs together through life and entrepreneurial things. He's asking, when people are confronted with business failure or setback in life, sometimes they retreat into an unhealthy place. What advice do you have to regroup and allow them to grow and learn from the failures that are inevitable?
Yeah. Glenn, as you know, the best thing is don't get in the unhealthy place. Like that's the best. And there's ways that entrepreneurs, they make mistakes. Sometimes they rush in, they're so excited and they're so believe in their dreams, they forget their homework. And I thought I'd write down a few very quick things as you'll be watching this again, but some things: never sign a full personal guarantee. Always have a buy-sell agreement. Never do your banking with one bank in one place. Recognize the importance of proper estate planning and have a current will. And the next thing is have mentors. I have mentors for everything I've got an interest in. When I wrote my first book, I got a book mentor. When I gave my first speech, I went to a speech mentor. In my Harley Davidson years, I had a Harley buddy with me for years and years who rode Harleys with me. So you can use another word for mentor would be a guide. So for all the activities that you have an interest in, have a guide for those and try and stay out of those problems, Glenn, that you were suggesting. Because when you're in it, you got to figure your way out of it, whatever that problem is. So check. And this is a great time right now. There's another opportunity to check all the things I said going through your stuff, because you got a bit of window of time right now. Back to you, Jordan.
Thanks, Peter. Okay, Glenn's got a follow-up question, and I see there's just a plethora of entrepreneurs on the call here today. So I think everybody's had an experience as a leader where you want to whack your head and go, what do I commit? What do I do at this point? Can you talk to us about maybe the the time, the biggest challenge you faced in your career where your fear of failure may have gotten to a point of being overwhelming, and what did you do in that experience, Peter?
Well, my worst time was back in the 80s. I did almost go bankrupt. I did not go bankrupt, but I came within a hair of doing it. And I was in Dallas. I'll never forget. I was in Dallas, Texas, at Turtle Creek, at the mansion at Turtle Creek, giving a YPO speech on how to be a successful businessman. I got my nice new suit on. I'm talking to all these guys, and half a coffee break, I said, "Mr. Thomas, we have a call for you." So I said, "Okay," took the call. And I had a partner said, "Mr. Thomas, Nelson Scalbani has declared bankruptcy on national television." I'd signed a truckload of guarantees with him. He was my partner. I didn't know anything about it until I heard about it on television. So I wrapped up my how to be successful speech very, very quickly. And I watched my net worth go from 150 million up to 70 million minus. That's what happened in a period of about, that happened overnight, but in the period of sort of a week or two. But I set up my legal team, and I don't know if John's on today or not, but I know him and I will never forget. I sat down with John, and I bought him a helmet and a knife and a block of wood. And I told him we're going to war. And I said, "John, you're going to need this if I go broke." And he said, I'll never forget what he said. He said, "Peter, it's not if you go broke." He said, "You are broke." It gave me the real realization. I just didn't know it, but I really was. And within days, I sold my yacht, I had a limo, my jet. I sold them all for 50% of their value. And I set that team to start the war. And when they went to war, what I did is I started what I called my new life, far from the war zone. And in those years, it took me 5 years to dig myself out of that. But in those 5 years, I let my team, I had my CEO assigned to the war, and with my lawyer, my legal team. In that time, I wrote a book, I ran the New York Marathon, I learned how to fly a helicopter, I raised my kids, and I did some amazing new deals. And my new life completely outshone that old life. So it was a very, very, those years are my learning years. So that was the disasters that I went through.
Wow. Thank you so much, Peter. That's fantastic. Let's go to a question from Chad Hughes. Boy, I think most of you know Chad. He pours his entrepreneurial passion into land solutions, where he serves as president and CEO and provides land acquisition, stakeholder engagement, environmental and asset management services to energy, telecom, infrastructure, and real estate across North America. And he's asking this: what steps do you take to validate the opportunities you see? Are there particular problems you watch in identifying crisis-related opportunities? And is there one step that's more important than the rest when looking for taking advantage of these opportunities?
Well, I think the really important thing is to understand what your wheelhouse is. There's always something comes along sometimes that maybe isn't in your wheelhouse, but I'm a real estate and a franchise guy. That's kind of what I do. And so if a deal's not in my wheelhouse, I don't do it. Unless there's something about it that's, crazy. I probably won't do it, but I might waste some time looking at it, which I shouldn't even do anyway. So I probably won't do it. But really what I do is I find out the person who brings me the deal to validate, to answer the question, is what's his stake in that deal? What's his validation to represent that deal for me? And usually I want to get formal recognition of who brings me a deal. And I want understanding how that person expects to participate or be paid. I've had some unbelievable situations where people have, they bought me a deal and they don't hear from them for a year and a half. And they write back and say, "Oh, by the way, you owe me $1 million. "Oh, really? What for?" "Well, I bought you that deal." And that was years ago. And so you make darn sure that you have a full understanding of that. So I'm very careful who I deal with. I wrote a book, you may remember, Jordan, Never Fight with a Pig. And I've managed in 50 years not to have any lawsuits. So you never fight with a pig. You can't win. You get dirty, and the pig likes it.
Amen. And I highly recommend the book. Okay, let's take a question from Jordan Zilber, who's a seasoned entrepreneur with over 30 years of corporate leadership, international deal making, and business development experience. The questions are going to be about personal finance and team management. So let's start with personal finance. And if you don't mind sharing, Peter, what action have you taken regarding your personal finances to deal with crises over the years? And what do you do to modify your portfolio? How do you prepare yourself to invest in new opportunities?
Yeah. Well, when you choose business to win for life in business. Like if you choose a professional career like law or accounting or physician or, business is like that. And business has risks that aren't, other careers have risks. They all have risks. So the first thing you need to understand, if you're going to get into business, there is risk in this business. So the first thing I mentioned, remember the buy-sell agreement, make sure you structure yourself properly and all that. So I make sure that now, to deal with the crisis over the years, that my investments are structured to be risk averse as much as you can. I've structured some crisis protection trusts where the risk capital I use for funding is usually secured and the profits might not be. So I would borrow money from a safe place, and make sure that money was secured and then take a risk, but I'm only risking the profit. I wouldn't risk the principal. And I also really believe in sharing the risk and the opportunity. A lot of people say to me, I've been blessed and done some amazing deals. I had partners with me. Say, why do you have partner? Share the risk. You share the upside, but you also share the downside. And what if it didn't go that way? What if the reverse happened? So I believe in both sharing the risk and the opportunity. The structure in business that I like using is a limited and general partnership. It's just a favorite of mine I thought I'd share with you. And I've invested in many, many projects, and I'll participate in both sides. Like and the general partner is the guy who looks after the stuff, responsible for doing everything. A limited partner is only responsible for the amount of money they put into the project. So I'll invest in my own projects and then also manage them. But I share the risk that way. Back to you, Jordan.
Thank you. That's incredibly helpful. I wanted to take a question from a real estate entrepreneur who I'm also blessed to know, Max Palacio. Why don't you wave? You two have partnered to create urban communities, which focuses on providing housing for the gray collar workforce, which is really an underserved demographic. And we've been lucky enough to work for your company. So thank you for that. Your amazing work was to acquire old buildings, transform them into thriving communities where residents improve the quality of life, creating really a ripple effect that impacts the cities where they operate. And it's amazing. And thank you, Max, because he's an incredible person. And his question to you first is, what are the main drivers in an investment strategy that you use, and how do they apply to the current situation? And which sectors should we be focusing on as we come out of the crisis?
Yeah, thanks, Max. Well, my investment strategy hasn't changed since the mid-'60s when I first got into business. And I have three pillars or three foundations, and that is safety, security, and profit. And I look at that for every investment that I do. And the first thing I ask myself, if you bring it to me, is it safe? Like, is it safe? And I'm not saying it has to be safe, but I need to know it. Like, I need to know the risk, what's the risk in it? And the next thing is it secure? Can I be secure in it? It might be safe, but what is my security? You look at a piece of real estate. Is it a first mortgage I'm doing? Is it a second mortgage? Is it equity? That type of thing. And the last thing I look at is the profit on it. Because I'd never give up safety and security just for profit, because usually you'd be wrong on that. So that's the philosophy that I've guided myself with Max since I've started. And then the second part of the question is, it's always great making money. There's nothing wrong with making money. We all know that as entrepreneurs. And I think we seasoned entrepreneurs, once you've been in it for a while, it's nice to make money if you can help people at the same time you're making money. And I kind of call that profit with purpose. So in our real estate side, with our communities that we create living communities with community gardens. There's yoga classes for our people. There's art studio, there's a library. Inside, we buy old buildings. These are old. I mean, if you saw them, you'd go, oh my God, I wouldn't live in these things. They're terrible. And as Max always says, the worse they are, the better he likes it. The more we can do with it, And our tenants have a safe environment, with lots of lighting and fences. They can feel safe and secure. If you have a single mother in there with a child, for example, they're going to be safe in there. There's a locked gate. They know nobody can get in there. There's lighting all over the compound. Nobody can scare them and chase them. So you'd be really in tune with, and Max is just a master at being in tune with the tenants. It's unbelievable, really. And so, with lighting, with fences, key-only access, and it's like an evergreen investment. Like, I don't care, we never sell them. We don't want to sell these projects you keep them forever because they do everything. They're safe, they're secure, they're profitable, and they're profitable with purpose. So that's a nice thing about looking into those.
Thank you, Peter.
There was another part about other places that Max was asking. He was said, where do we think, like, where do the opportunity lie? Well, I'm limited in my thinking because it's within the scope of my own knowledge. I'm sure there's opportunities all over the world, but I happen to think that Phoenix, Arizona is like crazy with opportunity. I really do. And Dallas has always been amazing. Texas is great. And we're looking at Detroit. Detroit's got some pretty interesting, debatable by lots of people, but I think Detroit could be a sleeper.
Thank you, Peter. And if you haven't visited one of these urban communities, since you're sheltered in place, but you might be able to drive around, you should drive by and see what they've done. It's pretty phenomenal. Okay, back to a team management question from Jordan. What's your approach? Not me, Jordan, but the other Jordan. What's your approach in managing teams during times of crisis, and especially now? Your thoughts on managing with this social distancing and how we've sort of evolved over the last month or so.
Yeah, Jordan asked that question. I think he's got his tongue in his cheek because, he knows my management style. And I have a bit of a different management philosophy, but I think it's one that everybody should do. But I used to be known as, I have to have somebody between me and a project because I'm not the guy. I am not the operational guy every day to make sure it runs perfectly. I'm just, whether it's to AED or whatever it is, but I need to align myself with somebody who is operational par excellence. So my guiding philosophy is always find a CEO to be in charge of any investment that I make or any that I have, bring in, partners invested with it. And then I get out of the way and I provide mentorship, capital resources if needed, and contacts for the business. That's what I do, and I keep out of the way and let management do what it does. I'm a much better chairman than I am as a chief executive officer. I do a role much better. My role in a corporate structure would best described as an executive chairman. And then my goal is, again, to empower and delegate and mentor my CEOs. It's interesting, and all of you, I say you should take a look and see what are your strengths and if life was a deck of cards, what cards were you dealt in your life? And if you understand your cards, play your cards. And you learn that you don't have to have aces to win the game of life. You just need to have higher cards than the other guys got. And you need to be able to attract aces. So what I do, I might have a 10 or a 9 or something like that, in my deck. I look, I'm going into something, I think, man, I'm pretty deficient here. I need some help here. Well, I go out, Jordan, and I find whether it's a legal ace I need or a business ace or a financial ace. So my philosophy, I don't need my aces. I got tons of aces and kings and jacks and queens available to me. So it's just a matter when the opportunity is there, you find the right aces to have and you always win. And anybody who knows the teams of people I've got, you'll just nod their heads because I got the most unbelievable people in the world. But the reason that they're so good is I empower them. Like they know that I'm not going to be there to catch them if they make stupid mistakes. And I'm not going to step in and run it for them. They're in charge. They are totally in charge of their, and that way you attract strong and best people because they're motivated to, they're leaders. They're motivated to do what they do. And they know they're not going to get interrupted, but they're going to get helped. So they can call me, Peter, I need somebody, I need $50 million. I need something. And I can help in those fashions. So I hope that, so don't worry about your cards, the deck of cards. You've got lots of cards.
That's great. That is great. And I've seen your leadership style in action, and it's pretty phenomenal. So the empowerment. As a follow-up, here's a question from Rainey Cavalieri, who's founder, CEO, and chief instigator of Aspire, which is the global culture and training company. She's award-winning international strategist and leadership expert, known as an organizational anthropologist and innovative change agent. She's recognized as one of the world's leading authorities on shifting human behavior to optimize performance. Rini, are you out there? Wave to everybody. Her question is, and this is good, what is your process around gaining clarity so your team's actions are aligned?
Yeah, a great question. Hi, Rini, how are you doing? for me, I'll put the clarity towards a project. So my clarity begins like if for example, I'm involved in a doggy daycare company called Dogtopia. And that was first given to me, I don't know, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. It came to my, looking at it. And my clarity begins with an executive summary. If they don't bring me one with the deal, then I make one up. I get somebody going there, professional, who goes in there and they do an executive summary of the deal to give me clarity of what it is. And then when I understand what it is, then I got to figure out how am I going to run with it? Like who's going to run it? What teams do we need to set up? Is the existing team in the business good as it is and that? So you get complete clarity. How much money is it going to need? All those answers are done before we start. And then usually if I'm lucky, I try and find a CEO to run with that project. So I get full clarity of the right person. And it's astounding how when opportunity presents itself, how the right people, the opportunity is right for the right person, how the right people come. I remember going back to my first big deal was Century 21. And I got to tell you this little quick story about how do you find a CEO? So I had the concept, Century 21, I found that YPO, I come back to Vancouver and I'm starting to look for franchises. One guy says, Peter, have you shown this to Gary Charlwood? And I go, no, I don't even know who Gary Charlwood is. No. So I'm out pitching the next day. Another guy says, Peter, has Gary Charlwood seen this? I go, no, I don't know who Gary Charlwood is. Well, third day, same thing happens again, this is all within a week. Said, you've got to show this to Gary Charlwood. I go, I guess I do. I guess I do. So I pick up the phone and I call Gary Charlwood. And he lives on the North Shore, made an appointment, and we go over and see him. Well, the guy's just unbelievable. I mean, he's amazing. He's the best. He's the best. Well, we wound up doing a deal together, and he became a partner with me. And I think Gary's still with Century 21 Canada today. So you send those messages out. The message. I'm looking, and I always am very vocal about when I'm looking for something. And if I'm looking for somebody, I very rarely run an advertisement. Word of mouth is usually the best.
Thanks, so Peter. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. I wanted to follow up, or she wants to follow up on that. Do you have techniques for maneuvering a team of people through multiple changes, stress, and anxiety?
Yeah, the people that I attract, and they usually know their own values, and they live and they work and they prioritize their decisions in alignment with their values. And usually their values and my values, they're not the same, but we're aligned. Like I respect theirs. Like one might be studying old English literature. I'm just making this up. But I recognize that this person's going to take time off. And when they didn't show up and work one day and tell me, well, I was at a library studying English literature, that I can honor that, And so you understand each other's values with people. So that's how I work with teams. And I honestly don't think we got much stress in our teams. We got action. We got all kinds of people working on all kinds of solutions. And we got all kinds of people, right now. But I don't feel any stress. Maybe Max and Neil will tell me differently. But they're not sharing the stress part with me at all.
Thank you. Okay, Peter, another friend, Tony Geary, has a question. And for those of you who haven't met Tony, he's authored over 60 books and is a personal coach to executive teams at many of the world's largest organizations, including Walmart, Sam's Club, Ford, Shell, TGI Fridays. This is making me hungry. I wish we could go to a restaurant, Peter, and Samsung. His question is this. How do we think about and get to know what our clients and customers really want in the new norms so that we can sell them and deliver most appropriately?
Yeah, well, Tony's also, he didn't do Walmart and everybody else. He also coaches me too. And
even more important.
Yeah, he's an amazing coach and has taught me a lot of really good secrets. So, Tony, the thing that comes to my mind is that the old, I did know this one before I met you, actually, this particular one, but they say to sell John Smith what John Smith buys, you must see John Smith through John Smith's eyes. So empathy really is what it is. To deliver customers they want, you've got to understand them, you got to know them, you got to feel their needs. Like our tenants in urban communities, our people who dwell in the apartments, the single mother who needs security of the lights and the garden, things like that. So the more spend time on the factory floor, or in your store, and with your working team so you can feel the pulse of the business. Times like right now are a perfect time to call your customers. I know that in our companies right now, we're calling our #1 customers, actually all of them, and just call them, how you doing? Are you okay? How's your health? You know, you're not intention to sell them anything. It's just, how are you doing? Because the relationship between you and your clients, that's what the critical, most important thing is. And I can't say enough, is communication, communication, communication. You cannot communicate. You can't communicate too much. I've never got heck yet for sending out too much information or for communicating too much.
Good advice, good advice. Okay, another question from Rini Cavallari, and her question is, how do you deal with negative people?
I was going to answer it real quick, but I won't. I'm going to take some patience and say it right. My answer is try and keep away from them. Like, try not to, but definitely don't let them affect your positivity. But patience. You know, first thing is patience, because, you know, get it again, to sell John Smith, get into the other person's bubble. You know, why are they negative? You know, and not being a psychiatrist or anything else, but is there something, are they usually negative? They're negative all the time, but then no. But if you're usually happy and positive, like Jordan, if I saw you one day and you had a frown on your face and you were looking sad, well, that's not you, you know, and you might be negative to me for a moment, but that's not Jordan. Jordan's a happy, positive person. So something's the matter. So have patience and be brutally honest with you though. And you know, talk to you about it. Don't ignore it. If it's a co-worker, for example, I'm like brutally honest, and I'd say, like, what's going on? Like, because negativism spreads. It's not good to have around. If it's a family member or a friend, then try and counsel them out of the absolute uselessness of being negative. Like, it's just a useless trait. It's good for nothing. And talk solutions. And if it's a customer, well, we all know the rule that the customer is always right, right? So agree with them. Say, yes, I can see why you see that way, but maybe you can swing them along. I remember once I was working as a salesman in Calgary, Alberta, and this Don Slater was an amazing salesman, suit all the time, perfect model to learn from. And everybody had gone to lunch, and the secretary asked me if I would sit and watch the desk for her. So I'm watching the desk, and in comes this couple, and they were just mad. They were red in the face and mad. Where's Don Slater? And I go, I'm sorry, Mr. Slater's gone to lunch. Can I help you? No, we want Don Slater. And I go, I'm sorry, he's not here. He's at lunch. They said, well, we got to get Don Slater here. He did this and he did that and he lied and he's, you know, oh, it was bad. So I went in the back and said, could you give me a few minutes? And I went in the back room. I was like, geez, what am I going to do now? You know? So I said to them, I looked at them, they're just like ready to blow up. And I looked at them and said, I took care of it. To what? I said, I shot him. I shot Don Slater. The guy looked at his wife and the wife looked at him, you know, they couldn't, and then I kind of smiled, you know, and it broke it. It kind of broke because they realized they were crazy. It was wrong, you know. And later on, about 10 minutes later, Don came in from lunch and they went to the back and they solved it. But humor is a good thing. I'm done.
Humor is a good thing. Humor is a good thing. Hey, can you talk to us a little bit about your philosophy and perspective on what makes somebody fantastic and then others just kind of pretty good? What's the distinction?
Sure I can. You know, when I had Century 21, at our peak there, we had 8,000 salespeople and we did about $8 billion of sales a year. And I've always been like fascinated with what makes success. Why are some people successful and some people aren't? This very question right here. And I wondered about that. So we had a psychiatrist come in and they did a bit of testing on some of the people and the top salespeople to see, you know, why they would sell and why they wouldn't sell and how come some people sold more than others and they didn't necessarily have the best territories. What made the difference? And they wound up coming up with the end of the study that they found that, you know, to be successful, there's lots of things you got to do. You got to work hard. You got to study. You got to be educated and all that kind of stuff. But there were 3 traits that were common in the people that were in the top 20% that weren't in the under the other 80%. And those 3 traits were attitude. Most successful people had great attitudes. They just have them, you know, and you can spot them. They got good attitudes. The next thing, the most important trait, is motivation. Is they're self-motivated. You don't have to phone them up to get to work. They're all over you trying to figure things out. You know, they're just dying to get into it. So they're motivated. And the last thing that successful people share, the last trait they share, is commitment. When they commit to do something, it's going to get done. They mean they're going to do it. So I call those the AMCs, and I look for that every time I look at meet a new person. I kind of check them out for their AMCs. Are they, you know? So that's my answer to that one.
Thank you. I think we're gonna take one more question, and then we'll have you wrap it up, just because time is moving quickly, and we've got a lot more questions. So maybe you'll consider doing this again. All right, this final question is going to be from our friend Glenn Williamson, and it's: as someone who has made a significant part of your life about giving back and mentoring others, what learning opportunity do you see from this global pandemic?
Well, you know, each one of us are a small part of the universe, each one of us. And it's very important, I think, that each one of us do our part to give our God-given blessings to contribute our gifts to the community, whatever they may be. You got to figure them out. And again, Jordan, there's time I'm going to tell you a little story. But there's a story about a girl who was down on the beach, and the waves came in and they blew about 1,000 starfish into the shore. And then the wave receded back in the ocean. And this little girl was looking at this, and she picked up a starfish and she threw it back in the water, bent down, picked up another one, threw it back in the water, another one, threw it back in. A man was standing behind her watching her, looking at her. He walked up to her and he said to her, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Well, you know, I'm throwing the starfish back in the water." She said, "What difference does it make what you're doing? Like, look at all those starfish. It doesn't make any difference." The little girl had one in her hand. She says, "What I'm doing does make a difference to this starfish." So it's when you reach out to help people, you don't have to help 1 million or 500,000. If you just help one, you feel good.
Well, you're definitely helping hundreds at least here today, and I know you've helped thousands over a long period of time. So thank you for that, Peter. Peter, maybe we can just get some comments in a wrap up from you, because we've just got about 5 minutes here left. And I know there's just so many things that we can ask, and so many things that people want to ask. So hopefully you will consider doing this again.
Wow. Okay. Well, you know, I guess maybe just talk about staying positive, and, you know, I have my habits, and I think habits are critically important. And what do you have? Is it 12:54, something like that? 12:54 right now? 3 minutes, 2 minutes? Do you want to know how?
12:55, Peter.
Okay, 12:55. Thanks, George. I wanted to wonder. But I regroup and I recharge myself by doing things I love to do. So every morning I start my day, you know, I read the Wall Street Journal, have a cappuccino, and I go for a hike in the mountains when I'm in Phoenix. I run somewhere else, but I go for a hike in the mountains. And I love music. So I turn the music on every morning, listen to Nora Jones or, you know, something nice and soft to listen to. I choose that, and it sets the mood for myself. And I guess the thing I love the most of all, and I got to finish off with this, but it might seem kind of corny, but I love being with Rita and my wife. And I find that this coronavirus quarantine has been a blessing, because she's busier, you know, she's busy, like I say, busier than a 2-armed paper hanger. She's running around, working all the time, like I am, and it's forced us to have some real time together. And we've been sort of inseparable for 33 years, but Rita brings me a calmness, caring, and support. And it's so important from our spouses that I think that this is a time, I suggest all of you look at your spouse, your significant other, whatever, your family, and it's a time to really bind those relationships. It's an opportunity to do that, because I think one of my best blessings is the special time I get, you know, with my sweetheart. So that's all I got for you.
That's awesome. Thank you, Peter. Everyone's clapping. I can see and everyone's sending you thank yous. You're just you're an amazing human being, and we're just also lucky to have you in our lives. And those of you that are on the Zoom today that don't know Peter, now you know a little bit more about him. I think go out and grab his book. This isn't a commercial for Peter's books, but they're just as motivating as having him here, and you can read those all the time. So Peter, thank you. Rita, your wonderful wife, thank you. Wafa from our offices, who's been very helpful. We really appreciate it, and look forward to many more. Thanks, Rita. Oh, thanks, Peter. There you go.
Thanks, guys.
Perfect. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.